bud washing. So you've harvested your plants and you have gotten to the point where you wash your buds. Are you a bud washer or no?
So bud washing, I always suggest for everybody to do bud washing. Like I know I have a lot of guys now who they wash all of their bud, their indoor and their outdoor. It's something because dust, for an example, some organic nutrients is a powder. It's literally a powder, and most of that powder is ground up bone, ground up manure, ground up things that are blowing everywhere. And washing bud, if you're doing it correctly and you're doing it where you're washing it and then putting it into a controlled space so you are drying it appropriately after, can come out with perfect bud. If you're doing it sloppy where you're just, I've got WPM, I've got issues, I got to quickly do this, and then you try and dry it in the wrong conditions, you're probably just causing a worse effect on it. I actually did a test last year on a plant. We had a storm that came through and it knocked over one of my outdoor plants, and I had to. I wasn't able to fix it in time because I was on vacation. So one thing after another, the whole entire plant pretty much got infected. So what I did is I cut off, because with bud washing, they said, you can cut off all visible signs of bud rot. You can cut off all visible signs of WPM, cut off all that stuff, and then throw it through the bud wash. And then it'll wash off all the spores, off all that stuff, so that when you do dry it, it doesn't regrow. So I went through right on stream in front of everybody. I went through a full hydrogen peroxide bath, and I sat there and I wasn't being light with it. I was being a little bit tough with it because I wasn't caring about ruining my bud. I was caring about wanting to see if this worked or not. I knew for a fact that this plant had bud rot on it. I cut off every visible sign that I could possibly see. Every single one of the branches went through a perfect hydrogen peroxide, a lemon and baking soda, and then just a freezing cold water. And then at the end, I even sprayed them all down just to try and make sure of anything in the inside. I put it into an environment that is more of a dry environment. So it's less than 50% RH. And you want to dry in a 60-60 environment. Yes, I understand that. But when your plants are soaking wet from after a wash, you don't. You want to make sure your RH is low for the first couple of days so stuff doesn't have a chance of regrowing, and then slowly increase your RH to that, or your RH and your temps to that 60-60 or close to it. 60 RH, 60 Fahrenheit, right? What I found with the washing is that even in that dry environment of that 45 RH to 50, in 4 days, every single one of the branches that I took off that plant and did a full wash, every single one of them had bud rot again in 4 or 5 days, because I either missed a single spore and I couldn't get it and it took off again, or I missed a single spore of something and it took off again, or whatever, or the 40% humidity wasn't low enough, or I didn't have enough fans on it. So I think if you do it correctly, to the point where your bud is not so dirty, it will work. But if you've got WPM all over your bud, you've got bud rot all over your bud, I personally don't think that even if you cut it off, I do not think you are getting all of it off. I think if you were to test that bud after the full wash, I still think you will have counts of microbial bodies on it. It'll show up. It might not decline or not pass the testing, or it might pass the testing, but you'll still have some counts of something on it, in my opinion. From everything that I've tried, WPM is a huge problem here in Ontario, and it is every single outdoor plant you put outside, you are pretty much going to have WPM. You need to use some type of spray, labs, some type of spray to get rid of it to protect your plants, or have genetics in plants that is resilient to that stuff, right? So that was the one thing I had. The plant was perfectly fine all year until the storm came through, and then all of a sudden the bud rot got into the plant, which is what happens, and then it goes through the stalk, and then it takes off from the inside out, and then you kind of get to the point where you've now got this plant that virtually or visibly doesn't have any bud rot, gone through a whole wash. You think there's none. You dry it, you jar it or whatever, and all of a sudden you start grinding it up or whatever like that, and you've now got some little bits and stuff inside it, and you're like, oh, what is this? What the heck is this? There's a couple things that might have made it worse, is that the washing might have sent it in even farther, and if you have really dense buds, you might have sent a spore or whatever in a little bit farther, and it might have not been able to get out of it, because the trichomes and stuff on the outside of a plant is almost like it's sunscreen. So when you do put this branch inside water, it's almost like the water, it's hydrophobic almost. And it's not until you really shake it in there where you actually get it where it might be going into the center of these flowers, right? If you're not really beating up your bud, I don't know if it's really getting or gonna get rid of that. Or we have to use higher amounts of hydrogen peroxide, which then starts to kind of count, well, you're oxidizing all your terpenes, you're causing a lot of negatives, this and that. I'm not against bud washing. I just think that if your plant is too far gone, I don't think suggesting bud washing is the best thing to do. I think suggesting getting rid of it is probably better, because I'm so big on molds and this and that. The reason why I grow is because I don't know where others is coming from. I know where mine is, so if I have a problem, I can address it. If I don't know where that problem is, there's no addressing, and then I have that paranoia factor, right? So anytime I see any bud rot, any WPM on my plant, that plant immediately becomes a learning experience for me, and I try to do everything I can to get rid of it, either using lab spray, milk spray, and if I can't, no hard feelings for me. It goes in the garbage. I'm not risking it for me. I'm not interested.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.